The New Triumvirate by Conway Fitzgerald. Chapter 14. Present Day.
Cawthul was a conjurer, a product of 3 generations of searchers, those who came after the Starfall, in search of the hell power that had been unleashed upon Castle Vosse and the New Triumvirate. Cawthul was the weakest among his school, yet now the only one to survive. He had found a place among Myst, who allowed for his discreet pursuit of conjuring powers while within Vosse City. For doing his bidding, Myst had lavished Cawthul with both wealth and social status. Conjuration magic differs from the spellcraft I had learned from Theb and others. We could recreate most of the same conjuration effects, sure. But true conjurers possess a powerful, innate force, not so learned as our own. Cawthul was not subject, like all others, to Myst's magic restrictions. His conjuring was deemed useful and aligned with the Darkstone. That pleased Myst's master, though the presence of the Dark Summoner beneath and this sophomoric conjurer in Vosse were still unknown to me then.
Cawthul, are you here? I have need of your potions.
Myst asked. He and his guardsmen, plus a small entourage of friends and supporters, had allowed themselves in.
Great one. Of course. I have prepared all that you have asked.
Cawthul covered deftly the small glass case he was hovering over with a kerchief. He then scrambled to collect the concoctions he had brewed for Myst, an intoxicant for stress, a stimulant for sex, and other topical treatments Myst required for his other embarrassing ailments.
Oh yes, perfect. You, my friend, are the greatest investment I have ever made.
Myst searched the bottles for the intoxicant frantically.
It is here, my lord. Proniara, with the finest lingot root.
Myst swiped the bottle from Cawthul's hand, cracked it open, and then downed it desperately.
Please, take care, my lord. This brew, it is a strong dosage. No need to take so much. Too much could never be enough.
Myst breathed heavily as he felt the immediate effect of the potion. He bathed briefly in the ecstasy of the potion with his eyes closed. When he reopened them, he breathed much easier. He then turned to Cawthul.
I need you to do something for me. Anything, my lord. Captain Sloane is missing. The best of my thanes report he has been captured by the rebellious rabble from the south. They thought he had been killed in battle, but now he has been seen alive amongst the rebels. Find him, if he is alive. Tell him I need him now.
Myst demanded.
I will do what I can to locate him, great lord. Please, allow me some time. No, be quick about it. I need him, lest you can brew a potion to rid me of these southern riders.
The conjurer slumped in response to that request.
Can you believe it? They've occupied 1/3 of the city. They've built barricades and armed them with boyars. There are now portions of my own city that I cannot pass through safely. Me, the governor, Myst. It's outrageous. Nor I, my lord. Please, understand. I am not a fighting man.
Cawthul explained.
Clearly.
Myst said dismissively.
I'll be in my tower. Find him. Tell him.
Myst ordered. He gathered his many potions and then hurried himself away with his guardsmen and entourage in tow. When the doors to his sanctum were closed again, and all of Myst's people had left, Calthul could breathe normally again. He then returned to his fondest pet, the subject of his marvel and intense study, Faye Herslet. When he was certain they were alone again, he lifted the kerchief covering from her glass enclosure. She flew up from a crevasse and waved for his attention. "I know Sloane. The ranger. Yes, I can find him for you," she signed. "Just let me out of this cage, and I'll pass that message on to him. It's what I do. I'm a messenger."
Of course you are. But oh no, my pet. How could I ever let you escape me? Were you to leave that glass prison, I would never see you again.
Calthul responded out loud with a frown. Faye Herslet slapped her tiny hands upon the heavy glass vase she was encased in. Making contact with the glass conducted the dark stone's anti-magic that had been stacked like coins atop the brass lid of the casing. She frowned back at Calthul from the pain it caused her. She then looked up to him again and signed. "What good can I do for you stuck in here? If I'm in this case, I can't help you find Sloane. Why not just let me out? I'll find him for you and give him the message."
You are an incorrigible little pixie, aren't you?
Calthul laughed again.
I have my ways of finding Captain Sloane. No need to worry about that, my dear fairy creature.
"You know, I have a lot of powerful friends," Faye Herslet signed, boasting the closest thing she could muster to a threat. "They're going to notice I'm missing, and they will not be happy with you."
Oh dear,
Calthul said sarcastically, replacing the cloth over the Faye's glass prison.
Then I had best secret you away, so that they don't find you.
Calthul laughed again, and then inserted the case into a dimension portal, which held the Fae in interdimensional space, much as my bag did on occasion, before it was destroyed by the Darkstone. Calthul then used his power of conjuration to summon a large hawk. It screeched loudly as it perched atop his left forearm. The conjurer whispered to the great bird, which then flew out of his tower window. Calthul watched as it flew majestically to the eastern section of the city, where the boys' law office was, and where the southern riders they had inspired now gathered in their defense. When he saw where the office was, Calthul leapt out of the castle window and descended to the ground. He used a levitation conjuration to prevent his death from the fall. On the way down, he polymorphed into a small bird. The conjurer flew after the hawk towards the boys' law office. The outer keep neighborhoods had swelled with ever more riders from the Southlands, from as far afield as Bishop's Gate and the Ostrom. News of a growing rebellion against Myst had spread like wildfire, as had reports it was being led by Sherman and Marcek, the two young law clerks who authored the Giant Killer's tale, and were now my legal defense team here in Vosse Court. Never had there been a thing afoot as exciting as this for these young riders. If adventure was their trade, then this scene was a gold mine. Calthul observed the boy's office from his perch atop the building across the street. The hawk circled high above and screeched its report down to him. He is there, in the office. He lives, it told him. Calthul then transformed himself into the likeness of one of the many young riders and approached the well-defended gate of the small law office.
Go around,
one of the armored defenders told him, pointing to the rear lot. Calthul nodded and then made his way around to the back of the property, to the empty lot that was Lewin's rider camp. The riders were mid-meal by a series of fire pits, laughing and sharing boastful stories of their latest encounters with Myst's cavalry. Calthul was searching for Sloane, but the ranger found him first.
You there. Who are you?
Sloane asked him. 2 other hooded characters Calthul did not know were closing in behind him.
Captain Sloane, it is I, Calthul.
He said in a near whisper.
I come, bringing a message from Myst. This ought to be good,
said Brunarian, encircling him from the other side.
What says our fair governor?
Sloane asked with a smirk.
Speak your message, conjurer.
Calthul took a step back towards the newly constructed wooden palisade. His assumed rider image was dispelled by Khajiits, who had now joined the circle around him with several others. Calthul was trapped. He had no choice but to do as Sloane commanded.
Myst was concerned about you, and he asked me if I could somehow speak to you.
What does he want?
Sloane closed in.
For you to return to the castle at once. He demands your presence.
Calthul spouted. There was a pause before the group of rangers, riders, and even the gnome burst into laughter. Sherman and Marcek also joined the group, curious what this was about.
That's it. That's my message.
You tell Myst that I have been relieved of my duties to him by the blessings of the All-Father. You can also tell him this. He should have listened to my warning. For now, it is too late.
Sloane warned. It certainly would have been a much wiser move for Myst to have released me when Sloane implored him to. Now even Sloane was lost to him. A ranger lord who was spiritually refound and delivered back by Marcek from the darkest depths of the abyss.
You tell all those bastards in that dreaded castle to release the Red at once,
Brunarian demanded.
It'll only get worse, not better. Of that I can assure you.
Calthul's back was pressed to the wooden palisade, as even more angry riders filled the circle.
I will tell him,
Calthul said desperately, so grateful to have an excuse to escape. He then conjured a dimension portal into the wooden palisade and leapt through it. Immediately upon traversing the magic portal, he sprinted down the cobblestone street and then transformed back into a bird. He flew back to his tower window and returned to human form once within his laboratory. Calthul's heart was racing. He held his chest as he gasped for air. Calthul thought of how Myst might react to his report on Captain Sloane. The young conjurer had never felt such intense fear for his own life. He thought perhaps he should flee this place while he still could. But leaving the castle meant leaving his power, his place he had found here. He drank one of his own potions in an effort to calm himself. The potion had the desired effect, so Calthul headed to Myst calmly thereafter.
He said what? Released? Of my service? By the All-Father. Ha! My grandfather was right. The Great Seer still haunts this castle. This must all be his doing,
screamed Myst at Calthul.
He said, you should have heeded his warning. For now it is too late. Oh no, no. That's one thing I am certain of. They will not have that red bitch released. She is mine. I will see her die.
Myst said confidently.
Sergeant, double your numbers outside the courthouse. Prepare my cavalry. Tomorrow, we will see an end to this rebellion. We will kill the whole lot of them. Sloane will rue the day he defied me.
The sergeant acknowledged his orders and then left to see them through.
Their numbers have swelled greatly, my lord. There are many others with the riders, wizards, and even enchanted subhumans are now there among them.
Calthul warned.
All the better. I must commune with the Dark Summoner. The time has come. He will help me. He will provide me with the answer. The way to end this.
Myst then headed down to the depths of the castle, to the burning pit I had found beneath the castle grounds. It was the source of the Darkstone, and also home to Myst's master. Calthul did not join him, choosing instead to return to his laboratory. He had been given a similar warning, to free the one he had captured. He wanted to discuss it with his treasured pixie pet, but more so, he feared being caught with her now. She needed to be left where he had hidden her, somewhere no one else could ever find her, at least until this foolish upstart rebellion was over, and I had been put to death. In the morning, the boys' carriage made its way back to the courthouse, though today there were many more fighting men barricading the road, preventing their entry into the keep's main gate.
Clear the way. These men have rights under Vosse law to consult with their client in the tower. You cannot prevent that.
Lewin demanded.
Watch me.
The sergeant responded.
By orders of Judge Balkus, you must let us pass.
I do not answer to Balkus. None shall pass this portal whilst blood flows in my veins.
I can remedy that then.
Lewin threatened. The sergeant's spearmen gathered together in a wall.
Back off, rider, or we'll pike your horse.
Lewin retreated from the long spears as Marcek peered out of the carriage.
What's going on here, Sergeant?
He asked in a measured tone.
By order of the governor, no one is allowed in. Return home, boy, or lose your head.
While Marcek persisted, Myst looked out over the Barbican and saw it was them, Stolkren's students, the two young scribes he had sent into the woods to find me. The same two who were now my upstart legal defenders.
Get them! Get that carriage! Capture! Kill them! I don't care which! Just do it now!
Myst commanded to his new cavalry captain. Moments later, the keep's gates were opened. The spearmen leaned forward into their spears and marched towards the carriage. Behind them rode an armored squadron of cavalry. They quickly encircled the carriage and forced the other riders back.
They're moving on them.
Sloane called out to the others.
This is it. Charge your men.
The morning peace was cut like a flash of lightning as both cavalries sprang forward, charging out into the plaza in the direction of each other. Moments later, a clash that sounded like a clap of thunder could be heard as the two armored forces met.
Stay in the carriage!
Demanded Lewin of Marcek as he leapt from the coach onto his horse. He pulled his sword and engaged the wave of enemies that had been thrust upon him. Yet the great push of Myst's cavalry charge thrust his lone horse back. Try as he might to resist the rushing current of charging horses, he was suddenly losing sight of the boy's carriage. The plaza outside the gatehouse was filled with screaming horsemen now engaged in an angry pitched battle. One of Myst's agents leapt onto the coach and instructed a few of the others who were on foot to enter the carriage. As one opened the door and saw the two young lawyers frozen in fear, he smiled. He pulled out his short sword and laughed. Moments later, Sloane grabbed the rogue by his back, hurled him off the carriage and into the chaos of the horse melee.
Stay down!
Sloane yelled as he slammed shut the carriage door. He then engaged in melee with a couple of Myst's agents that were urging the carriage horse forward, into and through the gatehouse. Some of the spearmen were clearing a pathway for it to pass. Sloane struck down one of Myst's operatives. The other tackled him off the carriage. The man thrust his knife at Sloane's neck, so he flipped him under another charging horse among the fray. Sloane rose, sword in hand, to find he was being charged by two other riders. The ranger was forced to step further away from the carriage to fend off their imposing mobile attack. The gates were now up, and the boy's carriage was moving beneath it. Lewin smashed his way through several of Myst's cavalrymen. He then used his sword to swat and then ward off the charging line of spearmen. Lewin then rode aside the moving carriage until the spearmen stabbed into his steed's thorax, dropping him to the ground. Lewin ditched the saddle, got up quickly thereafter, dodging several prodding spear tips, and leapt back onto the carriage. He fended off the gathering spears while he climbed his way over the roof of the carriage and back into the coach. He then cut down the two men who were pulling the horse forward. Suddenly, to each side of the carriage, Lewin saw the rapid movement of strange, massive, aquatic tentacles. The countless appendages were wrapping themselves about the carriage and forcing away the keep's spearmen, all the while deftly untying the horse from the carriage that held the boys. The tentacles released the carriage from the horse, and then the massive octopus pulled the carriage out of the gatehouse. The huge, slimy sea monster used its giant tentacles to move the carriage above and out of the fray, until it rests the carriage safely in an adjacent lane beyond. As Myst's men hacked at the octopus, it transformed back into the gnome wizard Khajiits. The angry gnome then unleashed a powerful volley of missile magic at them. The surviving spearmen then retreated, so Khajiits took flight back where he had deposited the boys. Lewin leapt atop the carriage horse that had been freed and led it back into the battle. Like so many others of his kind, and despite his short human lifespan, he was ever eager to thrust his young life into certain mortal danger. Lewin's riders, as well as Sloane, Brunarian, and their rangers, had reached an impasse of force. Many bodies, some dead, others moaning in pain, littered the stone plaza. Myst's cavalry and spearmen retreated and then reclosed the keep's gate. Lewin's riders, in Myst's cavalry, exchanged missiles, vulgarities, and threats from behind the iron gate. The angry scrum of men was then silenced by a single brilliant horn that sounded in the distance. The melodic call rang out, and all those within and outside of the keep's gate knew what it meant.
He's here! He's come! King Owen has come!
One of the elder horsemen asserted. The gathered lancers cheered out at this most welcome news, which spread quickly. Myst and his men were stunned by the jeers they received.
Your goose is cooked now, Myst. It's over! Do you hear me? Over!
Pronounced one of the riders. The others cheered wildly, casting their own vulgar aspersions upon the governor. Myst retreated back to his palace, cursing the Great Seer and pledging my death the entire way home. I witnessed this entire strange scene unfold from my narrow, iron-barred window. One moment there was angry chaos and the clashing of steel. Moments later, there was a hush of anticipation throughout Vosse's embattled city streets. I could see the horses riding up and down the main thoroughfares, trying to obtain more accurate information. It seemed the energy level of the riders dwindled, as did their numbers, as the afternoon brought heavy rain and more questions than answers. My first indication came from my jailers.
Look, she's hoping Owen's here. To grant her a pardon, maybe.
One chuckled.
It's his emissary, is what I was told.
The elder jailer shared. Their information turned out to be mostly correct. The King of Torbana's call was heard, but that was because his emissary, Dieter Moeller, demanded entry past the throngs of militant outsiders, now flooding the city's gateways. Muller was dispatched to serve a message to Myst, directly from Owen IV. His messengers were able to convey that message, but his emissary was refused entry into the inner keep. Nothing had changed. No one, in or out, remained the order to Myst's men. Muller was allowed into the south gate by Lewin's men, and he was convinced by another man he would be safe to stay at Sherman and Marcek's law office. When they arrived, the boys learned why.
Father, it's you.
Marcek called out from the office courtyard, rushing to greet his father, part of Muller's entourage from Torbana.
My word. Then everything I've heard is true.
Marcek's father Jorm said with concern.
Marcek, lad, what is the meaning of this?
Marcek's father pointed at the many armed riders that had found a home in the perimeter of the office he had paid for.
These men are heroes.
His son told him confidently.
They are here in defense of justice.
Marcek said.
And whose justice be that?
Another voice rung out. Soon after, Dieter Moeller emerged from the carriage.
The king has become quite concerned about the strife that has flared within this city. Now, I come to find there is open violence being perpetrated. What is the intention of this rebellion?
The emissary asked.
Who do you claim to be to establish any cause of justice within this city?
They are speakers of the truth, and they are right with the law. I am witness to that.
Sloane interjected.
As far as I know, I am still the sheriff of this city. These young men have been inspired by the All-Father to bring justice back to this sacred place, which has been starved of both truth and justice for so many years.
Sloane said with deep conviction.
Son, is this all because of that elf? The one they call the Red?
Jorm questioned his son.
Why have you joined in this, now armed struggle against the law? Why didn't you listen to Gilmain or Judge Eastwind? Because Aermine speaks the truth. She is the last thread of the old order.
Marcek told him.
We believe her. And we believe in her purpose. For both Vosse and for whatever is our place in her story. So much so, we are prepared to stake our own lives and our sacred honor upon it. Then you had better prepare a more capable defense for her than that,
said Gilmain, with wisdom colored with his typical tone of impatient disdain. He then also emerged with the group of powerful men from within the royal carriage. The king's men were invited to stay in the meager living room of Marcek and Sherman's small office. The two boys had the front office cleared of their meager furnishings, but the nobleman only stayed for a short talk over tea.
I've reviewed your case, and the arraignment as it was recorded. I think I may have found a problem with it.
Gilmain asserted.
It may not sway Balkus to stay his judgment this week, but it may require for him to allow you a last argument in her defense.
Why, thank you, Barrister Gilmain. What have you found? Asked Sherman with an excited smile.
There is no stated primary cause.
The Master of Voss laws told them.
Nowhere, within the record of Judge Balkus' reading of the charges, did he state which was the primary cause of action. He must do this. Otherwise, the rest of the case can be dismissed, if Balkus allows it.
Muller, the emissary, seemed dubious.
We will see if we are even allowed to enter the inner keep. I doubt these boys will be permitted back in. A primary cause? Of course,
Sherman said excitedly.
If none is stated, then it should be inferred that the first charge was already muddied, according to Balkus himself. The charge, as far as I can decipher, was her willful presence in the city to perform acts of sedition against Vosse. Balkus mentioned she was being pursued by Myst's men for many years prior.
What do you intend to prove? She's already confessed and pled guilty to all charges.
The emissary jabbed at Gilmain.
But no primary cause was ever stated. So if Balkus were to allow this argument,
She could change her plea.
Sherman agreed.
my research into this quest of Myst's family to find her goes back many years. If she was indeed lured here by Myst,
Which she was.
Added Sloane.
I can attest to that.
it was my agents that
Sold the idea of sending these two to find her, to lure her out of hiding.
I nearly had her in Bowl a few months ago, but not until we captured their findings.
Then it was Myst all along. I knew it.
Declared Marcek.
File this, if you can, in the morning. It's a request for the recording of primary cause of action against the accused. If it will be heard, then you can introduce all of this evidence, perhaps including Captain Sloane's testimony.
Gilmain suggested. The boy seemed resistant to having the Ranger Lord endangered by Myst, who was now certain to capture and kill him with all the others.
I will do it.
Sloane assured them.
Yes, do it. I will escort you there tomorrow, with the emissary and his party.
Until Myst levels charges or
Formally dismisses me.
I am still the sheriff of
This city.
They cannot keep us out.
And maintain the court schedule. Balkus would be forced to adjourn. Myst's many actions of late that have clearly been in contempt of his court are certainly advantageous to us at this stage.
The following morning, Sherman and Marcek were indeed allowed to enter the South Tower. I was quite surprised to see them.
Miss Aermine.
They smiled and hugged me when they were allowed in my cell. I motioned to the burns on my arms and face caused by the Darkstone.
What are you two doing here? We've petitioned the court to state its primary cause against you. It was something that should have happened, but didn't. We believe this can offer us a chance to see you released.
Sherman said. Why? Why do you still believe that I could ever be released by the court? Myst wants me dead, and he will see it done. He's promised me that himself. I confessed.
Balkus will hear our argument, or he will adjourn. Either way, we're not leaving you before the end week. We will be by your side.
I was touched by their spirit of defiance and perseverance, but I was still unconvinced. How? What makes you think you can win?
Because Myst and his case is corrupt. We can prove it.
Marcek said confidently. What do you think you can prove? I asked them.
That you were not plotting sedition. You were simply trying to reclaim our property. You were set up. Captain Sloane himself has agreed to testify to that.
Sherman said.
All we really need to know is the complete story of the new Triumvirate. How and why they came to Vosse. What they were promised. How they removed the first Myst. Can you tell us the whole story?
Have a seat, I said dismissively. I'll tell you everything.
Thanks so much for watching, everyone. If you haven't yet, please subscribe and ring the bell for notifications so you never miss an episode. Be sure to smash that like button and comment below. It helps a lot. If you'd like to help me get this book published, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter. And as always, Be sure to share this story with all of your friends on your favorite social media.